Shine with Kendell Lenice. Real talk for real people. Let's shine together.
Welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am your host, transformational life coach, Kendell Lenice. I'm also an author, a content creator, a speaker, a healing coach, a certified meditation practitioner, and a lover of people. I want to see you win, and that's what this podcast is about. It's a life podcast. You'll get some live life coaching. You'll get some amazing guests. And most importantly, you'll heal and laugh. It's all about education, elevation, and entertainment. I don't know how you stumbled upon this podcast, but I'm so glad you did. If you haven't already, please subscribe and rate if you can. We are available on all podcast outlets. Also, follow me on social media at Kendell Lenice across the board. Now on to this week's show. Welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice. I am your host, Kendell Lenice. I'm so excited to have this part 2 with my guest, who I'll introduce momentarily. But we are continuing the conversation about narcissism. Narcissists are everywhere. And I know it's a buzzword on social media. And I saw a post the other day like, I'm sick of hearing about narcissism. I'm sick of hearing about narcissists. And she had a list of words that she was tired of hearing. It was reciprocate she had on there. She had narcissism. She had queen and hey, beautiful. And all of these buzz things that people say on social media. And some of them I can see how they become mundane to some, or like, okay, enough already. And those are the people that probably never encountered a narcissist. So they probably don't really understand the significant impact that they have. So I get it. You know, it was humorous and she did a little comedy about the words that she was sick of using. Now, if you scroll through social media, you go on Google, you study, hey, what is a narcissist? You will find out. But isn't it great when we can have an expert on and really have conversations and insert real life and real experiences about narcissism? We talked last week about triangulation. We talked about gaslighting. We talked about narcissism. And today we are going to go further with examples. We're going to smooth everything out to make sure you fully understand what we're talking about. And we're going to talk about definitions. We're going to give examples, statistics. And I want to talk about the silent treatment because that is a form of gaslighting. And we will talk about that. My guest is jumping out of his seat right now. But before he is jumping out of his seat, ready to talk about this. But before I invite him on, I want to start with this week's Life Note. All right, it's time for this week's Life Note. So if this is your first time listening to Shine, welcome. Our Life Note is a quote or a saying that'll take you through the topic of this show, through the next week, or through your life. This one: toxic people make you think you're holding a grudge when you're really holding a boundary. Hello? I repeat, toxic people make you think you're holding a grudge when you're really holding a boundary. And that's by Mel Robbins, a motivational speaker. Now, I often talk about boundaries. You can check on my YouTube channel. And this podcast, Shine with Kendell Lenice, I did a whole episode on boundaries. You got to check that out. But before I introduce my guest, I want you to subscribe to this podcast if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, and so many more. So if you're able to rate this podcast, please do me a favor, do that. If you're able to download, do that. If you're able to leave a comment or rate, whatever you can do, follow, do that. I greatly appreciate that. And also I am on YouTube as well. All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I'm looking at my guest and he is ready. He is ready. He got his microphone this time. Last week he was like, I sound like I was in a hole. I need to use my microphone. So we elevated his sound and here he is, Jay Houston. He is an author and he is an expert, a PhD, and an expert on narcissistic behavior. Welcome to Shine with Kendell Lenice, Jay.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that fantastic introduction, Kendell.
I so appreciate it. So, so we're going to get right into it. Let's talk about first, what did you think about last week's show? Part one.
I thought last week was fabulous. We went through a lot of different aspects from it. I think we'll go into a little bit more details and some examples and statistics, but I also wanted to go back to what you led off with when you opened up the show for today, and you mentioned somebody that you found on social media who says she is tired of the word narcissism being thrown about.
Yes.
Okay. I completely understand some of that frustration because I think, and what we can clear up today is the difference between narcissism just being thrown around when people just mean a self-centered person or somebody who's just got their own objectives in mind all the time, and somebody who's really out there being emotionally damaging and causing a lot of trauma within the people of the lives around them. And that's what we hope to be able to differentiate today.
Very good. That's very good. I was talking to a friend today, and I was sharing that I was doing this part two. And it was brought to my attention that Narcissus was a Greek god. Narcissus was a Greek god. And let me just talk about that. So He was named Narcissus, and that's where this comes from. It derives from that. Because he was the self-lover. He was very self-absorbed. And I just want to read something to you. Let me see. Narcissus was a hunter in Greek mythology, the son of the river god Cephas. And the nymph, this whole nymph, Lyrop, pardon if I said that wrong. He was a very beautiful young man, and many fell in love with him. However, he only showed disdain and contempt. So when you think about narcissism, and shout out to Rev Kev, who brought that up to me today. Yeah. And you want to talk about that?
If I remember that from Greek mythology, and I don't have that in my notes, if I remember that, he fell in love with his own reflection in a lake or a river, and
exactly
led to some sort of trouble for him, but he just could not look away from himself.
Exactly. So how about that? You didn't put that together, did you?
I did. I heard about that from Greek mythology. I remember some of its origins, but yeah, that definitely goes in hand with the narcissistic personality disorder that we, unfortunately, that we see too much in our aspects today. Right.
That's where we got the word from. It's spelled slightly different, but that's really where it came from. So last week we gave some scenarios of our experience with narcissism and narcissistic people. And on TikTok, I talked about triangulation this week, and I also talked about being raised by a narcissistic parent. And we got off the call, and you were telling me about just someone about being raised by a narcissistic parent. Do you mind sharing some of that? And of course, we don't have to say any names on, who we're talking about, but just a small example of the traits that you may see within that.
Sure. I can give that to you, and then we can go back and talk about some of the statistics and give the actual definition of it whatsoever. But the story that we were talking about when we were offline was somebody who really struggled later in life or throughout their life with relationships, romantic relationships, because they had a narcissistic parent and they didn't really have an example of how to be loving, how to be non-argumentative. But I thought that they did a tremendous job even trying. They knew that they wanted to have love. They knew that they desired to have those relationships, romantic relationships, and they even got married at one point, but they couldn't overcome the way that the narcissist parent had raised them to always see themselves as the victim. This person actually got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, probably because they were raised by a narcissist. So seeing yourself as the victim, if you see that as a kid growing up, you might try and escape it, but it's really, really tough. And I really have the most empathy for people who are raised by a narcissist.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So as I was, studying narcissism, as I often do, and I started doing probably the last year or so, or maybe last 2 years, statistics show that everybody has a little narcissistic behavior in them. But the difference between both, and I want you to talk about this, is one sees that they need to change some things, Absolutely. And then one is like, what's wrong with me? Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it. 5% of all humans have been actually diagnosed, or they estimate 5% of all humans would be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And to your point, the difference is with some of the things that we have, all of us can be selfish. All of us can tell lies. All of us can be manipulative at some point. The difference is when it's pointed out to us that, hey, you did this, we can say, all right, let me try and work on that. And I want everybody in your audience to be able to think of a narcissist as an emotional 7-year-old. If you try to talk to a 7-year-old about self-awareness or counseling or emotional awareness, the 7-year-old might sort of just laugh and say whatever. And these grown-ups, whether they're 25, 35, 45, 55 or older, are just going to see our conversations with them about self-awareness as just being weak. So it's part of the reason that they can get counseling and sometimes be made to see themselves in certain ways, but it is completely incurable. And I wanted to make that differentiation for what we said last week when I was just saying borderline is not curable. Well, some of them do get counseling. Some of them are seen by professional counselors, and that's part of the statistics behind narcissistic personality disorder.
Thank you, and thank you for clearing that up. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, you have some statistics there. Let's get into it. Let's get into the meat of it. What do you have?
Well, the first one was about the 5% of humans having that overall. Most of it is found in romantic relationships. I was able to find that is 2/3 of the people who complain about narcissistic personality disorder. It's funny, the lady that you were talking about in social media, you're absolutely right. Somebody who says they're tired of hearing about narcissism is somebody who hasn't been through it. So 2/3 of the people that have been through it in romantic relationships usually ending up in divorce, in very ugly divorce cases. The rest of it happens within the workforce, where we have the rest of the 1/3 of the people talk about how they have a narcissistic boss or coworker, which again causes stress and trauma within the workplace. So some of the times when we have coworkers that, I can't stand my coworker down the street, I can't stand my coworker down the block or down the hallway from us, some of that can be with narcissistic personality disorder. But unfortunately, we see it in the romantic relationships the most. You know what I thought was really odd, Kendell?
What?
Very few children are reporting this in cases where their parents have been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. Very few have the capabilities of even reporting. They see it much later in life. So we're not capturing that as much. And I think that is the most underrated part of narcissistic personality disorder. Because, of course, if you're 8 years old, 10 years old, you don't really know what's going on. And you may not have enough of a grasp on the world to understand what you endured as a child as being narcissistic personality disorder.
Right. And that's the thing, because if you're raised by people, you think that they're your parents or your grandparents. You don't understand the personalities, because a lot of times people are walking around here in their trauma body and they're blaming it or thinking it's personality traits. But it really is not personality. It's really, the trauma that you've been through or who you are because of possibly being raised by people who haven't addressed their trauma, because every parent is not narcissistic.
Right.
So maybe a parent who been through trauma, and you don't know any different. If you're a child, you're not going to say, hey, I'm raised by a narcissist. It's when you're sitting on someone's couch or Zoom in a counseling, coaching, or therapist, space, and then you're understanding. And shows like this help people see certain things as well.
Absolutely. And getting back to the statistics, thank you for sharing that. Genetics and nature versus environment and nurture. There's a slight aspect of it, and they haven't quantified it as to how much of it is genetics, how much of it an environment. But the actual definition is an inflated sense of self, an inflated self of self-importance, and an inflated sense of entitlement. And again, that derives from a combination of genetics, being hardwired, and a combination of environment. And that's the actual definition of narcissistic personality disorder.
And I appreciate that. Why do you think, like going back to the top of the show, and I was talking about the TikToker and what she said, why do you think all of a sudden it seems like people are starting to speak about it?
You know, I think it's
just
as important.
You hear gaslighting, you hear narcissism, you hear triangulation.
It is. I think it's just as big of a wave as it is people who are trying to be more self-aware, trying to be more empathic, trying to be more emotionally intelligent. And the antithesis of self-awareness and emotional intelligence is narcissism. It is absolutely, and we're going to get into this much later into the show, that they're almost complete opposite, not mirror images, but just the complete opposite. So the more we hear about people trying to be self-aware, the more we're understanding that there's some people who are intentionally trying to not be self-aware. They're intentionally trying to be non-empathic. And that's where narcissistic personality disorder comes into play.
So you think that they're intentionally doing that? Go further in that. Why do you think that they're intentional?
Narcissists are always trying to do that. I mean, they're emotional 7-year-olds. So their warped sense of self they're always trying to play emotional manipulation games with the rest of us. And they really feed on empathy. So I think just to your point, to your question, and that's a great question. That's a great question. I think the more we have people who are working on self-awareness, the more we have some people who are realizing, wait. There's a certain part of our population who is preying on people who are trying to be more empathic. We talked about this last week. Narcissists seek empaths, are attracted to empaths because empaths can't see them. We'll project our goodness onto them, and they can be as devious as they want with them. We'll project our frustration with them, and they can manipulate us in those ways.
Yeah, it's interesting because after doing that show and all the research I've done the last couple of years, sometimes, now you tell me this, do people always know that they're narcissists?
You asked that question a few times last week. They do not. And Kendell, it's important for us to realize they don't care. So when they're walking around doing all the rest of their damage, and when we're classifying them as narcissists, they don't care. They could care less about the definitions of it. They could care less of what that means, unless it means something to you that they can manipulate.
Right. That's true. Right. And the thing is, you could call them whatever you want. The word doesn't matter because the behavior is still going to be the same.
Correct. So I'll ask you, Kendell, what is it that you would like narcissists to be able to realize? Do you think that they're going to hear this show and recognize that they're a narcissist?
In a wonderful world, hopefully 1% of them will be like, you know what? I didn't know. I want to change my ways. Now, I'm not saying that they can't. I mean, I do believe that at some point with some things, some people can tweak or change things, right? But with narcissists, even I've heard it by you. I've heard it all over. I've seen it with research. We talked about this last week, but even therapists don't even want to, deal with narcissists because it's a waste of time because they're never going to own anything.
Correct. So it's important for us on this show to realize that whatever they think we think of them, they just don't care what the label itself is. They just care if you get emotionally charged up enough about it to want to give them some label, whatever it is. Call them whatever. You call them Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. Whatever it is, if you're emotionally charged up about it, they want to be able to manipulate your emotions about that title. The title itself means nothing to them. It means everything to us. Because it labels them as, and we hate labels sometimes because, it feels like judgment, but it labels them with a certain types of personality traits that we can see and then be able to understand. And all we want is a handle on those personality traits so that we know what we're dealing with. They could care less what we call them. Yeah. They could care less what we think of them as an official title.
Because, and thank you for saying that, because, having experienced a narcissist and, them, of course, always the victim, always blaming everyone else for everything. Always. We talked about they twist your words. They make you think something is wrong with you. They play on your empathy and sympathy and naivete and all of that And then the next thing you know, it's the trickery of it all. How do you think people get caught in the trappings and the trickery of it?
What?
Because it's almost like you wake up one day and be like, oh, snap. Really? It's like, hold up.
You're setting me up for some of the examples that we can give.
Okay.
You're talking, you're setting these softball questions up for me. I truly appreciate that.
All right.
And you're saying, how do we get caught up in that? Well, let's talk about the big picture of how narcissists operate. Mm-hmm. They don't just flip to be the victim. They start off with something that is high drama. Then they go into that high drama being trauma to others. And then, after they've inflicted the trauma, through the drama, they flip to the victim. You ready for example number one, Kendell?
Bring it on.
We're talking about high drama leads to trauma, flip to the victim.
High drama leads to trauma, flip to the victim. Let's get it.
You got it. Story number one that we're talking about from narcissistic abuse that I have witnessed myself. Narcissists love to take special events like holiday gatherings, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, a wedding, even a funeral. If the attention is not on them, they love to turn those into high drama. And one of the ones that I've seen is a Thanksgiving gathering, a Thanksgiving dinner, where a narcissistic parent with all of her kids present had to start up an argument. That argument went from just arguing, bickering, to blows being thrown, knives being pulled out.
What?
The narcissistic parent witness it myself, the narcissistic parent goes to the kitchen, pulls out a knife, start waving it around, saying, if y'all don't leave my house, it wasn't even their house, waving it around, threatening everybody, waving it around, threatening everybody. Grandkids had to be pulled out. Nieces and nephews had to be pulled out into the parking lot. Stop all of this madness. That's the trauma. At that moment, everybody is traumatized. The drama, the argument, the knives being pulled out that's the drama. The trauma is everybody having to deal with it. The trauma is everybody having to shaking, thinking, what the heck is going on? But let me tell you, if I hadn't seen it myself, Kendell, the flipping to the victim was immediate. That parent, after starting that argument and getting that knife out of the kitchen, then proceeded to pick up their cell phone and call their siblings and say, I've been damaged. My kids turned on me. There was an argument, and then that parent's siblings, the uncles and the uncles and aunts of the people came out and showed up and started saying, hey, what did you all do? What did you all get into? What is happening? Everybody who was at the event was like, they're just in their line and making up stuff. But I could not believe how quickly that narcissist flipped from inflicting high drama, which led to the trauma, which then led to them making a phone call like they had been the one manipulated. The lies were unbelievable. So the lying isn't just for no reason. The high drama and trauma isn't just for no reason. It's just so they can make themselves go make everybody else seem inflicted and then get sympathy from those around who don't know the story. They get sympathy from those around who don't know the story. That's example number one.
I know family members like that too.
Do you?
I know. Oh yeah. Like it's almost like, and I'm aging myself. It's no secret. Do you remember Mr. Magoo?
Of course,
the cartoon. So do you remember how he would cause all the havoc and accidents, and then he would keep driving straight, and all the havoc and accidents are behind him, and he's like do 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 do, and he's just driving.
Mr. Magoo. Am I dating myself by knowing who you're talking about?
But that's how it is, right?
Okay,
that's what it's like. It's like you're causing all of this trauma and drama, and you don't, and then you're just going ahead as you go forth, and you don't realize the effect, or maybe, in some cases don't care about the effect. Because I know with narcissists, they blame, and we're talking about this, but as you're talking, I'm in my head and I'm thinking about different scenarios. And even if you try to hold them accountable, they'll flip it so fast. Absolutely. It's like a switch.
Yeah.
And if you say, listen, this gaslighting, you're psychologically abusive, you're doing this, and they'll say, well, you pushed the door open and hit me.
Absolutely.
And switch it and call you an abuser or you a like they'll switch it to, it has you thinking like, well, wait a minute.
Absolutely.
Did I? And even if you know you didn't, it's like a Jedi mind trick. It really is.
Absolutely a Jedi mind trick. I love how you said that.
Yeah, and they're dangerous to be around because it's so much peace when you're not entertaining narcissists. It gives you a whole nother level of euphoria.
It does. And just what you said about not just denying what happened, but accusing you of something different, like you have a different memory of what happened. That's exactly what I witnessed in that particular family event, where the parent absolutely was saying to those who weren't there that her children were beating her up. Completely contrasting what absolutely happened. Any more comments on that first example before we get on to a much shorter example number 2?
Yeah,
or do you need to move on to something else?
We're gonna take a quick break and we're gonna give more examples, and I want to talk about the pettiness of it all.
We got that
because they're like extremely petty. I want to talk some more about some statistics and examples, but I want to talk about the silent treatment because people don't realize that's gaslighting. So, guys, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to be right back. Make sure you stay tuned. Hey, everybody, it's Kendell Lenice. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to go on over to Amazon.com to purchase my latest books, as well as shopleniceboutique.com. For more information about my coaching, visit livingtruelivingyou.com. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. Hey guys, I want to talk to you about Goalie Nutrition. Now, you know I'm not going to come to you if I don't believe in something. Are you someone that doesn't like to take pills but you care about your health? Are you someone that doesn't like the taste of apple cider vinegar even though your mom and grandmom said there are so many health benefits to them? Well, I have good news for you. You need to try the world's first apple cider vinegar gummy. It's a source of powerful vitamins and nutrients. It's made with vitamin B9 and B12 to help support healthy immune systems, healthy nervous systems, heart health, and so on and so on and so on. Also, Goalie Nutrition has ashwagandha gummies that helps you calm down, relax, relate, release. It reduces stress and it promotes quality of sleep, as well as Super Fruits Beauty Gummies. Now, who doesn't want that? It has a fantastic fruity taste, and it also promotes collagen formation, restores radiance, and supports overall wellness. Y'all know I'm here for that. Also, Super Green Gummies. They're green, and they're made from greens, and they taste yummy. They also support digestive health, healthy liver function, a healthy immune system, and nervous system. Y'all need to go on over to goaliegummy.com. goaliegummy.com. Better yet, goalie.com to make it simple for you. Also, if you use the code Kendell Lenice, you will get a discount on all your purchase for that day. And guess what? You can continue to use my discount code Kendell Lenice to get everything you need for great health. Y'all know I'm about great health. If you want to be here, take care of yourself and go on over to health.goalie.com. If you can't figure that out or remember that, Google Goalie Gummy and get yours today by using the code Kendell Lenice. All right. We are back. I thank you for your support in advance. If you are not subscribed to this podcast, please do so. And don't be stingy with this information. If we're talking your language or we're teaching you something, because it's all about education, elevation, and entertainment. And if we're doing that, I need you to share this episode and download it. All right. Whew, Jay.
Hey, Kendell.
Okay. Let me, I got to do a big smack.
Okay.
I got to get it out.
Okay. Good.
I got to do all of that.
Take your time.
Because I want to talk about the silent treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That was used on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said it was manipulative and it was abusive behavior. And a narcissist would say, oh, I'm just stopping myself from or entertaining this or make an excuse here, or talk about silent treatment and what
silent
you just
treatment
said.
is one of the biggest weapons that narcissists have against true empaths. To be able to manipulate you by going completely stealth, and they don't always have to live with you, they don't always have to be around you, but they can go completely silent on you for as long as it takes for you to be able to crack.
Yep.
And they especially employ this when they've been accused of doing something wrong that they know that they don't want to be held accountable
Ooh-wee. Right. So since they don't want to address whatever said subject is, then they'll do that and say and define it as something else.
Well,
I just don't want to argue.
Right.
So if you hold them accountable, they see it as, I don't want to argue. But is that manipulative speak, or do they not really want to argue?
Of course, it's manipulative speak.
Yeah.
But beyond beyond that type of speech is the true mind game. Is initially empaths usually think that the narcissist or the person that they're dealing with, especially in romantic relationships, has shut down because that person is thinking about it and feeling remorseful. And we're thinking, okay, they're taking this seriously. They're shutting down. They're thinking about it. Maybe they're getting a little bit more clarity on the things that I've been telling them that we need to be able to work on, that they can agree to it. Then a little bit more time goes by. Then a little bit more time. And what eventually happens in the empath's mind is that we'll reach out to them to say, hey, are you okay? Are you struggling with this? And bam, that's where they've got you. The silent treatment goes from empathic people thinking that they're thinking about it to us reaching out to them to say, hey, what's going on? You're not talking to me? You're not reaching out to me? Have I done something wrong? And that's where it goes. That's where they're leading to be able to go to. Narcissists want you to be able to think that you've eventually done something wrong, and staying silent is a way to be able to play a mind game with you.
Well said. Well said. It's so true. And it's so funny because you'll hear people talk about the silent treatment and they don't realize the psychological effect of that. You know, being ignored, you feel manipulated, you feel rejected, you feel all of these different feelings, but it's a very interesting tactic because it usually follows if you have a conversation and you're holding somebody accountable for their actions or behaviors. So some people, like if you bring something, if I said, Jay, I don't like when you smack when you eat. Now, I'm not sure if Jay, y'all, I'm not sure if he smacks when he eats. So
hold on a second. My chicken is good. I'm back.
Like,
you were saying?
Like
Go ahead.
So if I said, Jay, I don't like when you smack I don't like you smacking. That smacking is driving me crazy. Can you, close your mouth, right? Then you as a narcissist may look at that as starting an argument, not having effective communication. Is that how that what do you think?
Yeah, that's also something, but I'll make sure I continue to smack. I'll make sure that whatever it is that I know that you don't like is something that I'll continue to be able to do, whether that's smacking or burping or wearing my hair a certain way, whatever it is that you don't like is what I'll continue to do as a narcissist. But yes, I'll also get on you for wanting it that way. You're being manipulative. I'll accuse you of whatever it is you're trying to hold me accountable for, no matter how petty it is.
Oh, we're going to talk about petty. We're going to
child.
They the big
no limits
child
to the pettiness about
Petty
you
McPhee.
and the things that you and your career or things you do. And Kendell Lenice, you being somebody who has such a big, huge footprint on social media and are helping other people, that is a ripe garden to be able to manipulate you in terms of hating the type of pettiness that incurs, because narcissists are intrinsically jealous of anybody else's success. They want all the attention for themselves, right? That's why they're going through all the rest of this stuff. Look, the number one thing that lady on social media was right about when she was tired of hearing about narcissism all the time was that narcissists want attention. Okay, we get it. Well, that's true. They do want attention. But their underlying pettiness and jealousy makes them delve into, they're going to definitely take swings at you and people like yourself for you're always trying to shine. To them, you're trying to outshine them. They can't help but look at it as a competition. You got a podcast named Shine? Well, I got to outshine you. And if I can't, I got to be able to bring you down.
And it's so funny because it's deep. And then shine, right. And it's about shining the light on different topics and shining the light on my guests with amazing things to say. And we're shining the light on Jay Houston, PhD. He's an expert. He's an author. And we're talking about narcissistic behaviors. We're giving patterns. We're talking about pettiness. So I want to say, so you're absolutely right. Now, this is the thing. Every narcissist is not going to be the same. Some of them may not have some of the traits that we're talking about. So you might be like, oh, no, they're rooting for me. They're by my side. You know, they're supportive because you see the support, right? So they might not have that. But Jay is like, no. And here I am trying to still protect some narcissists. Ain't that something?
There you go.
I'm still
but
doing it.
I can clarify that last statement for you. You're somewhat right. You mentioned narcissists may not all have the same traits. They do, but they can still be supportive people, just not to the people in their inner circle. They present one face
because I've
in
seen
public
some
that is different.
But I've seen
than who
some
they are around.
supportive. I've seen some support. Now I don't know what's behind. I've seen some narcissists support other people. Right?
I have as well.
So,
the narcissist in my life was supportive in other aspects, but when it comes down to it, their pettiness, they're still always comparing you to them. They're still always keeping score of what you're doing. So they can seem supportive at first, especially in those love bombing early stages. But I want to make sure that I'm showing that as long as you're seen as a function
like
of
it's an
them,
effort to support type thing.
No. As long as you're still seen as a function of them. Like, if you're doing great and they're right there with you and they're in all the photos with you, if you're on the runway doing whatever, but the moment you're not including them in everything, the moment that you're excluding them, then they're going to flip because they're not being supportive at that point. Yeah. So if you're bringing them along with you on the ride, they can be supportive.
Right. So
don't miss one show without them.
Ooh. So let me
miss
give
one
you
runway without them. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're the guest. But as you're talking, I know you wanted me to share some examples, and as you're speaking, I'm thinking about that. So as a life coach, 20 plus years, and all the things that I do, I'm all about, positivity. I'm all about helping people heal. I go by the remix coach, but some call me the healing coach because it's really important that people heal for me in order to live their best lives. Like, you really gotta take out all the junk, right? The water got to be clear and not all this murkiness, right? And this is what I get. You're a life coach, right? Why don't you, your life should be perfect. Or you're a life coach, and you should know that. You're a life coach. Like, the vulnerability of being a woman and a human being is not seen because I'm a life coach. So that is the target soft spot for me, where it's like you can't be completely relaxed because if you do something out of order or context, then you're a life coach. Like, you should know this. Like, you got all of these tools. What's wrong with you? That whole what's wrong with you would make somebody jump from the 10th floor. You get what I mean? Because it's that kind of pettiness, the naggy pettiness of them wanting you to question you. Let's talk about that.
The number one thing I have in my notes right here, and I'm looking at it, I wish I could show you my notes. Narcissists love to inflict self-doubt. And what they're doing right then in that moment is that, well, you're supposed to be helping all the rest of these people, but are you the greatest person you can be? And in that moment, you start to think, well, and you talked about being emotionally vulnerable. They love to be able to turn that against you. So their pettiness, the doubting, the nastiness, that all leads to them still being stealth. And ultimately, they want to be able to manipulate on you on a much deeper level than just being about your career and how that either stacks up against the people you coach with your life. They want to be able to get much, much deeper with you. So that's the start of it all, Kendell. If you were able to see things at that level, that was great. But they'd love to be able to go a lot deeper than that.
So do some narcissists use God or use certain things to manipulate?
There's no limit to the things they can use. They can use anything. The Bible? Sure. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Absolutely.
I've seen people do that with religion. Multiple times, several different people where they'll try to use religion in that type of way.
Absolutely. Religion, politics, media. One of the main narcissists that I talk about in my book, Triangle Games, is Donald Trump. And while the book is not singularly about him, it's also about how a narcissist can manipulate some of the existing standards in our life that we have. Religion, sure. Politics, media, absolutely, Kendell, absolutely. You had somewhere specific you wanted to go with that religion reference?
No, not specific. I just was thinking about certain people during this show, and I'm thinking about how, as far as with God, like God wouldn't be pleased, or God wouldn't. He's falling out his chair, y'all.
Wow. That is so narcissistic. Please continue.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Or God would please, or you supposed to love God. Like what you do, the guilt of it all, or absolutely. Even, and then you find yourself, luckily my relationship with God is tight. So I ain't arguing with nobody about my, my faith or my relationship. But I have seen where people will try to do that. And then you're like, oh, okay. If somebody is not strong in their faith, let's just say, they can manipulate that to the point where you think that God is not rooting for you. I've seen it happen even with other people.
You talked about in the first show how this could be a trigger episode for a lot of people, for a lot of things you went through.
Yeah.
I hope that you just had a moment where it sort of triggered me. And I hope that there are a lot of people who are either they've dealt with it and they understand it, or maybe they're thinking about certain people that they're dealing with, have dealt with before, certain family members. The narcissist's goal, again, is to inflict self-doubt, drama, trauma, flip to be the victim, and have you thinking that you're the problem, or have others thinking that you're the problem as well. The gaslighting is when they make you think you're the problem. The triangulation is when other people see you as the problem and them as the victim, but they're always trying to be the victim, and they're always trying to inflict self-doubt. So religion, nothing is off target. Nothing is off topic when it comes to the depth narcissists will go through to inflict victimhood into their targets.
Yeah, I've seen it when I think about people that I know, and I've seen them experience narcissism, with other people. So it's not even just my experience with some. I've seen it happen with other people. I've seen it happen with examples that some people give as a life coach, and maybe relationships or upbringings or friendships, because people don't realize friends can be narcissists too. And you talked about that last week. So when people give scenarios and I'm doing life coaching, in my head, I allow them to speak, and in my head, I'm like, they're dealing with a narcissist. Like, that's really what that is in some examples. So, all examples are not my example, although that silent treatment one definitely is an example that I've experienced and I've seen.
What's the longest silent treatment that you've had to endure?
Well, not days or anything. Well, consecutive days. Like, they'll speak when they want to speak type thing. You know what I mean? Or, if you'll be caught talking, they could be right in front of you, and you'll try to talk or say something, and they'll just do this little smirk that people do. You know what I mean? Like, I hear you, but I'm going to deliberately manipulate it, and I'm not going to say anything. You know what I mean? I've experienced that. And it's so interesting. And like you said, they play off of somebody who may be a good communicator, or they play off of someone who might be empathetic, like you talked about, or all of those things. Can you touch on that again? If somebody missed, if this is the first episode that they're listening to, and definitely, guys, go over and listen to part 1 as well. But talk about the type of people that narcissists play, pretty much.
People with integrity, people with character, people that have empaths. And the higher, the more amount of integrity and character, the more empathic you are, the more difficult it is to be able to see narcissists, because you can't picture the level of dysfunction. You can't picture the madness in their head. You can't picture the emotional games that they'll play in that way. Let me take something that we said before when we talked about some of the games they're playing, and you mentioned the silent treatment, to say that when a narcissist is really on their game, when they're really doing their best to be narcissistic, when they can take the best situations. They can take, like you said, somebody's relationship with God, or somebody's relationship with their own parent or friends. They can take the best situation and turning out to be the worst. They can either inflict doubt in you that God loves you, like you mentioned, that's the situation I wanted to go back to, or they can turn friends who have no beef with you whatsoever against you. They can take any situation, flip it, especially to empaths. Their jealousy doesn't just run towards people's career. Their jealousy runs towards people's traits. Narcissists are attracted to empath because it's the one quality that they don't have. They are jealous of that. They don't possess that trait of being empathic. You mentioned months before offline about how in your previous show on gaslighting, you talked about how sometimes narcissists can make fun of people for having emotional reactions. And I realized that the narcissist that I was dealing with once made fun of me for having an emotional reaction at a funeral, at a funeral where some kid's mom died and the kid got up and talked in front of all of the whole church of people. And I was like, oh my God, that was so sad. It's like, you were crying. When I was like, yeah, it was some 9-year-old. Narcissists are inherently jealous of the traits.
And some of them don't have emotions. Yeah. They don't have emotions. So when they see I'm very acutely aware of all my emotions. Happy, sad, mad. You know, if I'm watching a movie, I could be tearing up. Or if something is sad, like you said, a natural emotion. And I talk about this with my clients all the time and my students. Little kids, like being able to be in touch with your emotions and feelings. So I'm big on that. Like, I think it's sexy for a man to cry. Now, you can't be crying 24/7, be like, pick your lip up. Why are you crying all day long?
Not to smack my food.
Right. But it's, I find it very liberating when I see a grown man cry or an adult cry, to really, because I'll do another show on that. I did a show years ago about the significance and the health benefits of crying. Like there's significant health benefits to doing that. But then you have somebody who will make fun of that, call you a crybaby or say something like that. So what it does with some people, if they don't have a strong sense of self, it'll make them revert into themselves. And they may never have friends. They may never find love again. They may never, be able to, be around certain people because those narcissists broke their spirit. Like, what would you say to that? You got to be a tough cookie to do that, man or woman.
I've been there. Let me make this clear. Let me be emotionally vulnerable for a while. I didn't really understand what had happened when I lost a friend of mine. Again, not to death, but because a narcissist emotionally manipulated us, and then we were no longer friends. The first 2 months after that happened, I was pissed. I could see nothing but red. Doing the research helped. But then doing the research, Kendell, also armed me with more reasons to be upset about it. Like, that's what that was? Narcissism? It took a lot, as you said, of toughness to be able to get through that, be a better person. But I can guarantee you, so go back to the quote what we said before about narcissists when they're really on their game, can make it the best situation to make it worse. Where empaths, I believe, when we're really on our game, can take the worst situation and make it the best. And I think if we're striving out there, if I can be inspirational, if we're striving out there to be the best we can be, then we can be the complete opposite of narcissists in almost any situation. Take it when some situation could really go south, could really go bad, when your emotions could really get the best of you. If you can make that situation, whether it involves you and a direct one other person or you and a group of people, if you can make that the best situation, the best outcome possible, that's true empathy. That's true emotional intelligence. Narcissists do the exact opposite. And going back to our show at the topic, when we talked about how different they are, the true definition, I believe, of being emotionally intelligent is part of that, is taking the worst situation and making it the best possible outcome. Narcissists do exactly the opposite.
See, and I, that part of me, that's just who I am. That's who I'm built to be. I believe that there's good in everybody. I do. And that's, and people obviously will play off of that. But I don't believe that all people, every part of them, and I think that's where it gets tricky when you're dealing with a narcissist, because you want to be empathetic and give the benefit of the doubt. Then they turn around with the same behavior. So the best way is to really remove yourself from that. Like if it's a boss, quit. If it's a marriage, divorce. If it's a friend, disconnect.
Right. And even cutting off the social media ties, because they're still going to try to be able to follow you and keep up with you in something like they are stalkers as well. So you're right. But Kendell, how do we rectify that? How do we say, all people have good, when some people,
right.
not only do they lack that goodness, they manipulate that goodness that we see in everybody. What do we do with that? What do your listeners and yourself, what do we do with that?
Right. And then that's the thing. What I think is remove yourself. When you see, put it this way, if you're feeling sad, mad, angry, you're acting out of your character and who you are, you find yourself being a person that you don't like or don't like, you remove yourself, because that's toxic. You know, that was one of the words she said she was tired of hearing too, toxic. But it really is. It does something to you. When I removed myself from situations, people had hit me up. You look lighter. You look freer. You look like, what are you doing differently? People were asking me that, not even knowing what I had dealt with, or, you know, the situation that it was, in one case. I mean, you can think back years and be like, oh, okay, that one might have had traits. That one, you think about different things, and it's not just romantic relationships. And that's what I really want to stress. Yes. But people, and I'm not talking about lighter in complexion or lighter in weight. right. People were like, what is it? Someone literally just said that to me yesterday. Okay. Yesterday. And it's like a weight off of you, because if you're in that constantly, then that's going to affect someone's health, mental health, or physical health, right?
Mm-hmm. So being separated from a narcissist, making yourself lighter, and as you said, not in complexion, not in weight, it leads you to being in a more enlightened place. Yeah. Unfortunately, and one last thing that I wanted to say about narcissism is that they can't leave that dark spot that they're in. Their goal is to be able to bring you down into where they are at all times. It's not just that they play the role of the victim, Kendell. They are the victim, just not of anything that they've endured from us. A lot of these narcissists do have the childhood trauma. They do have improper upbringing. They were somebody who could not find a way to be able to get along when they were emotionally severed. And now they inflict that victimhood, whatever it is trauma that they have from those times, whatever trauma they endured when they were children, they try to inflict that into us so that we see ourselves as victims. Yeah. So it's great that you were able to break free from that. It's great that you're able to feel lighter and people were able to see that. Hey, what are you doing differently? What is it? You're glowing.
I've been asked that.
That is awesome.
Times. Yeah.
Because the narcissist's goal is to be able to bring you down to their emotional level, to where you always feel that cloud over your head that's raining. And if you escape from that, you feel better from that, I think you'll always feel that. Yeah. I think an ordeal with a narcissist makes you a better person in the long run. In the short term, good grief, I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Nope. And I think I told you when we were preparing for the show, I discovered like last week that I was affected by triangulation. And I didn't even realize that until I was in the car and I was driving. I was like, oh, shoot, that was triangulation, where a narcissist will call your people.
Oh, yes.
And talk bad about you to your people. So when you get ready to go say what the real deal is, they've already got some in there, because Jay is jumping out of his seat. He's like standing up and down. He's standing up and he's walking back and forth. I see him.
Let me put my headsets back on. I had to run around the room when you said that.
And that's happened to me, where they want to create doubt in your people's eyes or your people's mind. Because say, for instance, you had an argument. All right, say, for instance, you had an argument with your sister, and the narcissists know that you had an argument with your sister. So they will play on what you tell them and know what happened, and then say certain things to them, to your family members about that. So they can say, ooh, he or she probably did do that because they did that to me. Like, play on it. And so then when you go to them with facts and receipts and truth, then they're like, oh, well, and that. So talk about that. Jay is going crazy right now. He's going crazy. And I was like, oh, snap. I was in the car driving. I was like, oh, I was got with triangulation. What in the world?
Kendell, that is prime example. That is center cut choice, round steak example of triangulation. And you mentioned one phrase in there. They go around calling to other people in your circle, trying to either find ways that, find information about you, because that's another form of triangulation, is trying to find information about you, find out about that argument you had with your sister. Maybe you don't have to tell them, they'll find it from somebody else. It causes drama within you, because of course your friend is going to call you back and be like, I just heard from such and such. What? They called you? But mostly it's to be able to say, when you have bad things to say, when you bring the facts and figures to it, they want to say, well, here's something about you. They just want to be able to flip the script. They are proactive about keeping their image intact.
Then when you show your family receipts, they like, oh, I can't believe this, this and this. And be like, yeah.
Kendell, I want to come back to your show one day if I'm able to talk to my friend. I think about this all the time. This is the one thing that I also wanted to be emotionally available about. I think about if I could sit down with some of my other friends who know that one guy who's a narcissist, and we could all talk to the one guy who was triangulated from me, and he could hear about it, and he could see the emails and see the text messages and understand that this narcissist has had this behavior at work, in other aspects of a relationship, with other friends in our friend group. I wonder how he would feel. I wonder how he would react to it. Like you said, if you would bring the receipts back to that person, would they really understand what just happened? We'll see.
That would be good. I would love to see that. So it's so funny, because when you're doing self-work and when you're helping other people, as I do, and you're trying to be better and you're trying to educate yourself and train yourself and go to different trainings and seminars to be a better, even with me, being a better person and learning different things and healing and understanding things makes me a better life coach. My clients love me because I coach from a place of honesty and realness, and I have an empathy and understanding of some of the things that they've been through. I'm 51 years old. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot that I've seen, whether it was with me or through other people. So every topic or subject is not about me. Every example is not about me, but I'm not going to tell you what client said what, definitely not. But I see it so much. And we talked about it last week, even the most enlightened, because you're a place of, people make mistakes, you know what I mean? But, the behavior of narcissistic is, people is just wow. It just blows my mind. All right. Before we end, you want to touch a little bit on gaslighting, even though I did a show about that a couple of episodes ago. Yeah, a couple of episodes ago.
I think you did a great job with gaslighting. I don't know if there was much more I'd be able to add. Again, gaslighting goes directly when a narcissist makes you doubt what happened directly with facts, figures, receipts, as you said. They make you question in your mind the reality, and they have all kinds of ways to be able to do that. So I think you did a wonderful job with that. If there's anything else that I can close on, is to go back to your original lady from TikTok who said she was tired of hearing about it. I think that most people who haven't experienced it just understand narcissism as somebody who's self-centered. And some of the drama that narcissists bring along just sounds like just regular he said, she said nonsense, that it makes them tune that out. And unless you take a deeper dive, and unless you start to see the patterns of behavior, which they all have the same patterns of behavior. I mean, my goodness, Kendell, you talked about somebody calling around to family and friends. You and I had never discussed that online, offline, at any point. And I immediately connected with that. I had to leave my seat for a second because that is exactly the type of behavior that I endured. So it's that even though that is a frequently overused buzzword, those traits, those common traits that they display to unleash their emotional manipulation to the rest of their unsuspecting targets is lethal and can be emotionally damaging. If we are able to get through it and be the empaths that we're supposed to be, the empath that you are great at being every day on the shine and every day that you work with your customers and clients, if we're able to be that, then I think narcissism can make us, the empaths, even better, even stronger once we get through it. And I thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, and you definitely enlighten our listeners for sure. And I honestly think that, like, if you're an empath or if you're someone who is loving, caring, and all of these things out there, not perfect, because nobody is perfect. Even people
Absolutely.
who aren't narcissists make mistakes, fumble, speak out of turn, do things out of turn. People are human beings, right? So when you think about that, and then you think about if you are someone who is trying to be better and trying to grow. So many people on social media talk about, I want to be better today than I was yesterday. I want to grow. I want to live my best life. I'm going to therapy. I'm going getting coaching and counseling. If you're that person and you're doing that, then when you meet a narcissist, they can change your whole view. It almost can rub off certain things and your behavior will begin to change. Have you seen that? And then we're going to wrap this up.
I have. Wait, you're talking about our narcissist behavior?
No, the person who has never or who is experiencing that. Like someone.
Their behavior getting better, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Then change, and to someone else being affected by that, because they can be emotionally and mentally affected by narcissists. I'm thinking about one client right now. She's totally messed up, and she wasn't strong enough to really. She's just climbing back up from a dark place. All right, since narcissists deep down feel themselves to be faultless, it is inevitable that when they are in conflict with the world, they will invariably perceive the conflict as the world's fault. And that's by M. Scott Peck. All right, so this is the show. I hope you gained some information and some knowledge. I feel kind of vulnerable out here talking about certain things, but it's all to help people heal and to be able to recognize when you are encountering certain type of personalities and behavioral traits. Jay, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Jay Houston, tell people how they can get in contact with you.
Dr. J Ready Network on TikTok as well as Instagram. The book Triangle Games is now available from Amazon as well. Kendell, thank you so much for having me on your show and helping folks to be able to shine.
Absolutely. All right. So at the end, this week's wow moment. Takeaways from today's show. What's your final takeaway from today's show? What's your takeaway for today's show?
Final takeaway overall is to be, as we mentioned in the beginning, you can't really see it coming. But if you can understand the traits, the commonalities, the traits, the things that all narcissists do in common, my goodness, then you can put together a package in your head to be able to see what to look out for, what to warn friends about, and most importantly, how to be able to heal from it. Again, it isn't anything personal almost as they go about their manipulations. It seems personal. They can't help it. They're damaged people. Empaths still have a way to be able to get through with damaged people and be better people for it.
All right. And my takeaway is watch who you allow to entertain your space. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. Remember, you are a star, so don't allow anyone to dim your shine. Until next time, God bless. Peace. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Kendell Lenice. And also go on over to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Again, thank you so much for your support. God bless y'all. Peace. Thanks for listening. This has been a Kenny Lynn production.